Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's Your Impact Attack. And I don't know about you, but could this be the last Impact Attack? Well, we have to call this the Total Nonstop Attack.
Hmm.
Time will tell on that one. But nonetheless, we will be here, whatever it's called, to provide you with your in-depth analysis of this company owned by Anthem, whatever it is called on a given day. But who are we? I am Jamie Williams, sometimes known as the Vet, and with me, as always, my tag team partner Brandon, who I'm tagging in right now. Brandon, how's it going?
It is going super, sir, and I thank you for asking.
I will always ask. Uh, well, I'm glad that it's going super. It's very interesting things that are going on over in Anthem Entertainment Land. I noticed that in addition to some of the other things, they were kind of plastered all over. I must have been the UFC that I saw, like with Anthem on the ads and the ring and everything like that this weekend. Um, and they're actually, it seems like you never hear about them, but they're pretty big. So it seems like, just from an outsider's layman's perspective, that, you know, Impact TNA could be a lot bigger, as big as they want, basically, in terms of like actual funding, budget, all this other stuff that they do. But you know,
That's kind of been the story of their life ever since Panda bought them.
right. And that's the thing, and we see that with anybody that's, owned by a mega company, and they just Sinclair own Ring of Honor. Like, Sinclair doesn't have any money. It's just about what you're willing to spend, or what you think something's worth. So it's a shame, because it's not like you really need real money, or real uh like a real, how would you say this? You just, what you need is the appearance of money, and that can be achieved even without spending like an exorbitant amount of money.
You need the illusion of being like a big league company.
Right. But sometimes these companies skimp on things that are just basics, like lighting. So, and we're not talking about the little RGBs that you bought off the internet. We're talking about like like the rigs and stuff that you use in the arenas, to make it really look like it's not just some dingy guys fighting in the church, like at the beginning of Rocky or something.
Yeah, like I've seen some indie companies, while they didn't have much of a budget, they still did what they could to at least make their production values look as top tier as they could with what they could afford.
Right. But anyway, neither here nor there. Just Anthem's making moves, and they approved a big move, which is what we're alluding to. And that is, it's sort of a spoiler, because we normally go in chronological order of events here.
It's
Which this
Tarantino
would
night
actually be
tonight.
this would actually be the last event that we would talk about if we're talking about the events that took place over the weekend. But we're starting off with it because everybody knows by now, that apparently, as far as we know, Impact is rebranding back to the original Total Nonstop Action brand, at least as of Hard to Kill. Uh, that is the first thing that they've advertised, and there's been some social media. So, basically they're saying we're back. And so what do you think about, you know, and before we get to that, let's ask the C of a VBC here too, what their thoughts on it are. And let's acknowledge them before they answer, and then after you acknowledge them, Brandon, then tell me what you think about this rebranding.
I just want to shout out our homies Lab Rat, Lizbeth, Retro Rocket Review, Al Robinson. Hope you guys are doing great tonight. Thank you for joining us. My thoughts on the rebranding. It's kind of a bit of a nostalgia thing for me because, like, to me, like it's always been going to be TNA. Like no matter how you rebrand it, that's what I remember it as. Like I started watching it when I saw, or I first heard of it when I saw advertisements for their show when they first went on Fox Sports Net back in 04.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I even remember seeing Jeff Hardy on one of the advertisements, like going, shit, guys, he ain't getting involved in the angle with Matt Hardy and Kane.
That's my brother's business, man. Staying out of it.
And it's thought, well, good. It's good to see there's another company that's got a time slot, and hopefully they grow and just keep going from there. And then from there, I started watching it and became a fan. And I just TNA never stopped being TNA to me, even after it became Impact.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that part, at least. Like, you just always think of it, it's TNA, and then you have the you have the let me tell you, one of my pet peeves, it's not it doesn't, I don't know if you even call it a pet peeve, but it's just one of those things that's just kind of like, it's just annoying, like petting a cat the wrong way, you know, like it's just whenever or it's one thing I'm just really tired of, when you hear, how many times do you hear some old wrestler or wrestling personality be like, in WWE, WWF at the time, like, do you have to, anything, you could say anything except like categorizing it in that specific way. You could just say WWF and people will know what you're talking about. You could say WWE and people will know that you're referring to the company. But whenever they say WWE, WWF at the time, like, anybody needs to, you could even just call it whatever it was during that time. Like up to 2002, you could refer to it as WWF, or after 2002, you could refer to it as WWE, but they always like to make that clarification. I get so tired of hearing it. It's like, it's so unnecessary. So do we do that with TNA too? It's like, or if we go to TNA Wrestling, Impact Wrestling at the time, like, is that what we're gonna start? No, everybody just gonna think it's TNA. It's TNA. It was TNA longer than it was Impact. It was TNA before it was Impact. Some people never stop calling it TNA. Some people don't even realize that Impact is TNA. That's a smaller subset of people, but they, what's Impact Wrestling? I remember this one wrestling with Jeff Jarrett. Like it's only served to kind of confuse, and it's gonna be confusing. Because are they going to be Impact Wrestling? Like, is that going to be the name of the TV show still, now that it's TNA Impact? Because that's how it always had been. The show was called TNA Impact.
I think that actually has been clarified, that the TV show will now be called TNA Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, so it's like WWE Raw, TNA Impact. That's how it's always been. So now it's, yeah. But so I guess basically you're saying it's a good thing, or that or at least at the very least you're saying might as well, right? Yeah. Because no one really bought the change in the first place.
I mean, I get the argument for changing, like, from TNA to something else because of what it was originally named that for. But at the same time, it's become so ingrained and so known where it's just like, there's really no point in changing it.
Yeah, I think so. Well, let's see what the people think. Al likes it better than Impact. Retro Rocket says, I still call it TNA Impact to myself, but got tired of jerks saying it's no longer TNA, so stopped in chats. Labrat says, lucky they didn't try to bring back the owl. Yeah, what about that anthem owl? Let's bring it back, pal. Always TNA owl. To me, never changed besides the 6-sided ring, right? Is that coming back?
They said no, and some of the talents were very happy about that because it was the 4-sided rings a lot easier on their bodies than the 6-sided one.
Yeah, well, not that they care about their bodies anyway, as we'll discuss.
Yep.
So, yeah. And then Liz says, it's a decent amount of money to rebrand a company. It's kind of an odd thing for them to spend money on. They'll also have to pay for trademarks that may have gone dead or that they need now. Right. That's the thing that a lot of people don't reconsider. The amount of money that it takes for rebranding, obviously, like we said at the top, it's not that Anthem can't afford things. It's just a question of wanting to spend the money on the things or thinking you're going to get a return on investment. I guess time will tell if it even matters what you call this. Because without the exposure, without the prominence, if you turn it on and you still see the same old shit, then it doesn't really matter what you call it. I don't know if people are really excited about a brand. Even if you look at the biggest brand, the WWE, I wonder how much do people just buy like as fans for themselves? Like how much merchandise from WWE shop is sold with the WWE logo on it? Like who's buying a WWE logo coffee mug? Who's buying the WWE logo caps and t-shirts? Who's so proud to love the WWE as the WWE and not support any of the individuals? Like how much does that play into people's fandom? I don't know.
That's actually one thing about that argument that Triple H made about how, they don't want anybody to be bigger than the company. Well, it's like, well, doesn't it elevate the status of the company if you can say like, hey, this person came through here, this person came through here, that person came through here. Like, wouldn't that like elevate the status of the company if you say like, we create stars here?
You would think. So I don't know. I've seen mostly positive results, as far as since the announcement, anybody reacting to it. Like I really haven't seen anybody trashing it. I'm sure there are. Of course there are. If anything exists on the internet, it's being trashed right as we speak, but I just
I think that's I think it's called Rule 70. If it exists, shit on it.
Yeah, so you would think it's Rule 1. I'm surprised they thought of 69 other rules. Nice, before they got to that one. But nonetheless, it's happening. It happened, and we're here to deal with it. Some other interesting news. It's like there was a report that everyone's favorite, most polarizing figure in the business was backstage at tapings, not at Bound for Glory itself, but at the tapings following Bound for Glory. And yeah, he used to work at TNA for a little bit.
Russo?
You may know him. Yep, Vince Russo. No, actually, it was no, some other guy. Something.
CP Monk.
CP Monk, Chick Magnet, something. I don't know. There's some guy with a gimmick. Philip. Phil. Come on over here, Phil. Give me a kiss, baby. Yeah. That guy. Guess he was hanging out. According to this report, he was hanging out. He was quickly he showed up. He was quickly brought to the back. People got to hang out with him and take pictures. I guess I don't know. They're making it sound like a an outside celebrity showed up and everybody got a chance to talk to him. So that is of course fueled speculation that I don't know, could be CM Punk and Impact. The only thing attractive about Impact or TNA as a landing spot for CM Punk is the idea that
he could elevate them.
Yes, he could. I was gonna say that since he tried that already, another thing could be just the fact of working once a month.
That too, yeah.
That is an attractive option at this point, and getting a paycheck to do it.
Yep, and that gives him plenty of time to do other things and work on other projects,
which he does. If you keep up with the guy, you know that he's big into hockey and he has a gig calling fights for the UFC prelims and stuff like that for a cage something. I forget what the exact name of the promotion. It's Cage Fight something or whatever. But you know, he does stuff, and he seems like a recluse, and he kind of is, at least in terms of social media. But he does do things, and they don't have to do with wrestling.
Ooh.
So,
did you hear about this? Apparently, Ace Steel's getting hired by TNA. Or yes, go ahead and call him TNA.
TNA. Yeah, I heard something about Ace Steel being brought in to work as a producer at TNA, and then they supposedly, according to this story, they even said that they considered using him for the Call Your Shot Gauntlet Battle Royal, but the reason they didn't was they didn't want people to just assume that Punk was going to show up.
Right,
So,
which is smart. They don't want to get people's hopes up.
Right.
For something that may or may not happen.
Right. But yeah. So there's that as well. So perhaps it was merely a case of they reach out to Ace Steel, they want to give Ace Steel a job. Ace Steel wants a job there. It seems like it'd be a cool thing for him to do. And since he's there, guess who else might show up in support of that? You know, so it's like it could just be as simple as that. Like, I'm hanging out with my friend and supporting my friend, which Punk has already done in the past when he visited Impact the last time, you know, to see Trinity's match and all this other stuff. So, you know, I know he's a cancer and everything, but so there's some people that he continues to infect, you know, and support, I guess, if that's the terminology. But so yeah, we'll see. That's something to look at. I don't truly believe that that's going to happen, but the reason being, it's just for a guy that, okay, well, he's obviously a cancer, right? So, you know, if you're a cancer, then you definitely also have a big ego, and you're very concerned with perception and things like that. So you certainly don't want to be perceived as, look how far I've fallen down all the way to TNA that I have to be here. You know, that is not, that's not somewhere that you want to go after being a perpetual main event guy for the biggest company, and then the second biggest company that just appeared out of nowhere and pulled you out of retirement after being that important, and then you're just going to be on TNA wrestling like that. I'm sorry, you just can't do that. And that's how I would feel, and I'm not even anybody, so I can only imagine the idea of, like, Jesus, look at slumming CM's slum, you know, like, no.
What if, again, I'm playing devil's advocate here, what if what's going through his head is he wants, because he's basically kind of pissed off what happened with AEW, he wants to go to Impact and help elevate them and make them challengers to AEW, just to kind of stick it up their ass for everything that they did to him.
I mean, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does it make a sound? That's ultimately what we're talking about here. You have to be, if I think there's certain people that they get to a certain point and they can't, you can't go back to a certain level no matter what. I just think that, you know, there was a point when guys like Hulk Hogan or whatever showed up, but Hulk Hogan wasn't going to be doing anything with anybody else. There was nobody else, and they were trying to make a push to really compete at that point. They were sort of in the spot of AEW now, where they're trying to be like, okay, this is, we're really making an effort, and we're actually going to run opposite you. You know, like that was something that happened then. when guys like Kurt Angle show up there, big stars like Kurt Angle, who also main evented WrestleManias, it's when his personal life was in a shambles and he didn't have another choice. You know, it's like when people have historically come to this company in the past, even though this company can hardly be called the same company, right? It technically is, you know, but it's in a different place now. There were reasons why you would show up here. You know, there are reasons why a Kevin Nash or a Booker T or whatever. It's like I could show up, I could remain active, I can collect a paycheck, and then, you know, whatever.
And work
It
once
wasn't. It's once a month, and it certainly didn't have the stigma that it carries today. Which the stigma that it carries today, let's be honest, is yes, it does have its fans, but for the people that don't watch, the stigma is, holy shit, this company's still around. Like whenever they find out, they're shocked. So you cannot go from, you know, the focal point of the two biggest companies the last time you had runs all the way until, look who's, you know, CM Punk, what's he doing in the Impact Zone? It just, you can't do it. I'm sorry, you can't. If you do it, you have no dignity or self-respect left at this point, and I don't think that's the move for him. If he's going to do anything ever again, he has to make a splash and get a good last run on top, whatever that means, with WWE, and make that money, and then anything you do after that, it'll be like on your own terms. You know? Yes, Labrat basically sums it up perfectly by saying Impact is like rehab to rebuild your equity once you hit rock bottom. Pretty much. You know? Or they have somebody like Trinity who is like, I walked out, I'm standing up for myself, here's a good place to work, you know? And it's paid off for her in terms of like what she's doing creatively, I guess. But it's not like she was ever, even as champion, was ever the focal point. It was like, I'm talking about WWE now. Like, it was always like, yeah, it's your turn to be champion and whatever, you know, like it didn't really matter as much. So, you know, I don't know, but so I would basically, that's a long way to say I wouldn't get my hopes up that you see Punk on Impact Wrestling. But it's the talk is out there. So I've been wrong before. I also said he wouldn't show his face in public after getting it punched into oblivion in real fights too, but he did come back. So I am not the end all be all of authority. So there you go. Other than that, do we have any other newsworthy items to talk about?
Not a lot going on in the world of wrestling, but I am sure that will change as the ownership and the hierarchy changes continue to happen in Endeavor / WWE.
Oh yes, we'll see. You can see it in real time right now if you're watching Monday Night Raw. But who wants to watch Monday Night Raw when you've got the Impact Attack? Well, I guess we should get to our coverage because we got a bit to go through. We've got Bound for Glory, the biggest show of the year, their WrestleMania, basically, and of course the Go Home show for that. Now, am I to understand that there will not be a Punching Up Impact this week?
Unfortunately, not this week. Been having to work a lot more as well as deal with more family issues, so I apologize. But we are still working on the alternate universe built into Bound for Glory, where we see a lot more moose than what we've been getting.
Yes, we can always work on getting more moose. And it's not going to be really this week, I don't think, in terms of our coverage. But, you know, at least it's more than 0. So there you go. And Society Reviews, I'd like to say hello to Society Reviews with his comment. For 10 years, we got rid of TNA chants. Now we are bringing them back. Well, don't worry. as Terry Taylor says, don't worry, nobody's watching. So, so we'll see. But our coverage is going to begin with the October 19th edition of Impact Wrestling. And we get our standard catch-up packet, and then we get the opening match of what is it? Speedball Mike Bailey versus Samurai Del Sol. This is Samurai Del Sol is the guy that off screen answered the challenge of who's as good as Will Ospreay that's going to take on Mike Bailey to get him ready for Will Ospreay. So it's this guy. It's Kalisto. He's going to do it. Lucha, 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 lucha. All right.
Yeah, pal.
Yeah. So, so there you go. They have the kind of match you'd expect. There is some lucha in it. They do some lucha spots. They also do some dangerous spots, and they do some, some stuff and some flips and lots of things. It's exactly, if you've ever seen these guys, it's exactly what you'd expect. And I think I'm going to use that phrase a couple more times throughout the course of this review, at least. But Brandon, what'd you think of this match? Was this a good tune-up for Speedball?
Let me dig my notes out here right quick. I did like the character work at the beginning of the match with the whole thing where Bailey's getting frustrated, then he tries to show sportsmanship, and then it just evolves into frustration, and then they start going at each other. That's the kind of stuff I like to see in matches more. But this could have been a much better match if they would have structured it to where they're clearly trying to pin the other guy and win. Whereas we didn't really see that until the end of the match. We started seeing the pin sequences. Well, now, if they were trying to sell it and build it where they're trying to wear each other down before they went for pins, okay, but that wasn't really gotten across enough.
You're 100% right. I think what has replaced the spot where you would go for a pin is the part where you pose and run. Isn't that that has replaced the pin in terms of match structure? The part where you would try to beat the guy, you are now posing and then taking off to either hit the ropes or climb up the buckle or, run in place or whatever you do. So that being said, right. Ultimate Weapon for the win. Mike Bailey's not going to lose going into Bound for Glory if they're expecting him to even compete with Will Ospreay. So
yeah, unfortunately, I did not like the finish. I felt it looked really hokey and like he was just sitting there waiting for him to hit him with the finish.
It's generally how you have to do it. You got to climb. You got to sit on your hands and knees and wait for this guy to climb up to the. For a guy named Speedball, he gets to that. He sure does take his time getting to that top rope and posing, right?
And there's still a way to get into it, but both guys kind of have to be in sync and with each other and building to it. Like, for example, the guy taking it has to be kind of on the ground and selling up at the same time that Bailey's climbing to the rope so that the timing is it's in the right place.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, it was what it was, a tune-up match, apparently. So even though, he's the self-proclaimed greatest luchador of all time. The gloat. He wasn't able to get a win here. So now Retro Rocket has a comment here. He says, Speedball is like God. Mike Bailey's entrance sucks, but in the ring, that guy is God. Now that's an interesting comment because the thing that first comes to mind for a former, worker, when I watch a Mike Bailey match, the phrase that flashes through my brain most of the time when I'm watching Mike Bailey is, I ain't taking that. But I'm interested in the fan perspective of he's definitely got a gimmick. Like, I get the gimmick. I don't think that he's putting the gimmick over the way he, as much as maybe he possibly could, or the company is presenting it in the way they possibly could. I got more out of his gimmick when he did the Super Juniors tournament in New Japan, because he was able to do a promo after each match, like a off the cuff promo where he spoke in English, he spoke in French, and he spoke in Japanese. So, not necessarily all of them in every promo, but sometimes he would choose which one to speak in or whatever, and they would translate it. But so, like, I got a little bit more of what he's going for. But and just in terms of his matches, it's like you said, it's like less of trying to win and more of trying to look cool. Not really working as much, just doing moves. So I'd like to I just want more elaboration on that, of like people that, if you're a fan of his, I want to know what exactly you like about it, besides the fact that he looks like he's hurting people, and not in the way that's like, God, that looks like it hurts, but it looks like it's killing him, but it's probably safe. But more like, it looks like it's killing him because I think it is. Liz says Speedball is the most boring and predictable wrestler. I don't know if it's the most boring. Maybe just in terms of like his look. He's just some guy. He's like an undersized guy, like a lot of guys are these days. Not really a physique to speak of, but at least he's not on the gas. I don't know.
And he knows his character. Like, you could put him in any scenario and he could just improv off the cuff.
Yeah, I get it. It's like the character is honest karate guy. That's basically the character. Like, he would be he'd be like the protagonist in one of those late 80s martial arts movies that are very Americanized, like a No Retreat, No Surrender or something like that, where he's like just some nerd, not like even a nerd like Daniel LaRusso, where he's a kid that's taught karate by a wise old master, but just like a just one of those sort of the plain martial arts heroes that has to face an army of ninjas that come to his neighborhood and whatever, like that. No, so Retro saying, I hate all you anti-speedballs, but I was asking you specifically to tell me why you like him. Like, he's a god in the ring. Why? I'm asking for your comment. So it's not like we're anti-speedball. We're looking to be pro-speedball, I think, is the question. And you have to explain to us why we should be. Sell us on Speedball Retro Rocket Review. You personally, write a 50-word essay. Go. Then we get, after this, we get Dango with Johnny Bravo and Oleg. They do one of these. I don't know. What do we call these? We'll just call them the Dango vignettes, where there's like a typewriter asking him questions. Like, I don't know how else to.
Dango Mentary.
Dango Mentary. All right. So it's pretty funny. There's a couple good one-liners in this. I don't remember what they are, but they were funny. So yeah. Retro says, I simply like his moves. So you're one of those guys that just likes moves. Okay. Well, it's interesting, because you've been a long-time wrestling fan and you should be beyond that. But apparently you just like his moves. All right. Liz says, I'm totally anti-speedball. If he disappeared into the lights, I would lose sleep. All right. Her opinion is clearly formed. And he's just finding out Canada Spaceman was today years old when he found out Mike Bailey was Canadian. Just come back down to earth. You'll see what's going on in Canada. But anyway. Yeah. So yeah. So we got the Dango promo. Any comment on that?
I liked it. I mean, I really the stuff with him and Bravo, where he's like, I know I'm not mad, but I'm not happy. So we're seeing mistakes. So I got to make some adjustments. That's why I brought Oleg in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the way he's trying to like not be a douche to Bravo, but like say like, hey man, you're fucking up.
He said like two things that I thought were kind of funny. I can't remember what they are now, but I could have written them down, but I was like, nah. Well, we go from that to an ABC promo. I mean, they're basically just talking about their upcoming match and getting those championships back. So, you know, and they do it in their particular way with their catchphrases and their style. So, you know, it's pretty much what you could expect. Um, then we get Kenny King versus Heath. You know, what did you think of this first?
Oh shit! Hang on. Accidentally exited it.
All right.
Fuck. Sorry.
Well, so
there
I
we
mean,
go.
okay, you got it. I was gonna say he
Yes,
he did a good job selling the ankle. You know, like he looked like he hurt his ankle legitimately, and he was selling it. And eventually, they did just go back to start doing moves, but at least he didn't immediately just start running the ropes and doing a bunch of high flying moves and then clutching his ankle like the Seth Rollins, I call it. All right, so that's basically it.
Yes, I noticed that like the last match, they spent a lot of time on the outside of the ring for no reason that really added to the match.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and like you said, with the leg, like Heath did a decent job selling it, and then once they went into the finish, it was like, okay, my leg's magically better again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, well, again, now if you had a spot where Heath hurts his foot and he is struggling to get back in the ring, then you have a reason to be on the outside. And if none of the other matches had spent any significant time on the outside, this would mean more. But this is a case of not only if you're doing a show where you have to be aware of what other matches are doing, but you know, with these tapings that all take place, these tapings were like a month ago. These tapings were taped on the 22nd and 23rd of September. So who knows when this match was actually recorded in relation to the rest of the matches that we saw, not only on this show, but the other 3 weeks. So it's hard to keep continuity when you've got a lot of chopping and editing to do. But I mean, that's basically. Anyway, so I thought he did a good job of selling it because he was like limping and actually struggling to get up. And at first, the first thing I was going to say was, if you think I'm going to sit here and critique a Heath Slater match, you know, but he actually did something different in the match, and all he did was sell, and that brought enough attention to it. So it made it a little bit different. He did get royal flushed anyway, so it ultimately his heroism was not rewarded.
And right guy definitely went over in this one. There's a lot more money in Kenny King than there is in Heath.
Yeah. Liz says, "What about his kids?" Yeah. All right, let's talk about his kids. I got kids too. I don't give a shit about your kids.
They're eating. They got clothes. They got a roof over their head. They're fine.
All right. And just in case anybody was wondering, that's a quote from Brock Lesnar. All right. So last week, they show a promo that Frankie Kazarian did, where he talks about how he doesn't hate Fat Eddie, and he's actually their brothers because they went to Killer Kowalski's school. So that's quite a family if that's all it takes. But now that he's won a match out of their trilogy of matches or whatever, Eddie has no choice but to respect him now.
I just want to know when Strangler Steve King's going to get involved in the storyline.
I mean, we got some phone calls to make, I guess. So yeah, we're still on this, but I don't really. I think this is more than run its course, but that's just me.
Way more than run its course. Like let me pull my notes up. Shit, God, I hate my damn phone.
Stop putting your notes away. We got a show, damn it.
Yeah, my note for this is, oh, for fuck's sake, will this not end?
It won't. But the wrinkle is that Cass doesn't hate him. Character development. I'm rolling my eyes in case you're listening to audio. I can't roll them loudly enough. Speaking of which, Crazy Steve versus Black Taurus is next. And this is a no disqualification match. Just in case you were wondering. Steve sets up a lot of chairs in this. It's like he's getting ready for a picnic or something. But instead, it's more like he's just setting things up for perhaps planned spots. And then they have a one of the planned spots is him backdropping Taurus out of the ring onto a pot. Like it's like six chairs set up with 2 chairs laid across them to give a nice solid foundation for someone to land on if they were to come flying out of the ring and land on them, rather than what would normally happen, which is they would hit the chairs and the chairs would all immediately disperse and they would splat against the concrete. So he made sure to reinforce it with 2 chairs laying across the chairs. And so that way, when Taurus was launched onto them, it just really, 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 really hurt instead of just really hurt. So, so there was that. They fight over the fork, and then when Taurus sort of wins with the fork and then gets cut off, then he grabs the briefcase and jams it into his... Steve grabs the briefcase, holds it against Taurus's throat, throws him in the turnbuckle. So it's kind of like that thing that the Undertaker used to do. And then he hits him with his tornado DDT, the Belladonna something or other, for the win. Crazy Steve. He's crazy. Brandon, what do your notes say on this one?
Raywald had the line of the night when he said, during the part where Steve starts trying to apologize to Black Taurus and then ends up sticking his thumbs in his eyes, when he said, Steve was trying to fave an apology.
What the fuck? Okay. I'm sure everybody knows exactly what the hell that means.
Oh, everybody does.
I
mean, if you're watching Impact at this point, you kind of have to.
Yeah. Yeah, you might as well. Since this is all just a joke to you, and you know everything's fake, but now we all know the wrestling lingo. So, oh boy, any other notes?
Nah, just your typical brawl with weapons.
Yep. All right. Well, next we get a gauntlet of promos with music underneath.
I call your shot gauntlet of promos.
That's right. We get a bunch of people talking about them in this battle royal coming up. Anything of note that you marked down to talk about, or?
Nah, it's just basically everybody getting their lines in, and some of them are kind of cheesy. Some of them made me kind of chuckle a little bit just because of how cheesy they were, like Jody threats. Oh yeah, that was. Ugh.
Yeah, what did she say? Something like I'm a threat to win this thing, or whatever it was, or that's not just a promise, that's a threat. That's her catchphrase, right? Yeah. I mean, it's fine, I guess. It don't matter. Some people can be corny. It's pro wrestling. This is a pro wrestling thing you can do. I get it. It's fine. The only problem I have with it is they just showed the exact same thing again on Bound for Glory. So if you were going to show it, I would have just held it off for that and found another way to fill a minute on the TV, because I don't like when I see things twice. I really just don't. Even if you cut it, 2 different cuts of it, like I'm sure there was some stuff that didn't get used, for whatever reason, because it's not like they had 20 people cut a promo in a row here. So maybe you could have showed some on this part and others on the other part, but that's what I'm saying. Funny enough, Retro Rocket Review is saying, will they review Bound for Glory here? It's kind of in the title. It's just, goddamn, you know? First he likes Mike Bailey, and now this. But anyway, yeah. So, there was that, and then we see Musa Myers walking, and then we see PCO and Rhino walking. So these guys are walking. They got a match coming up. But before we get to that, we got Trinity and Mickey with Gia and no music underneath. Basically, this is just to show that they have no problem being friends and opponents, and that they'll definitely be able to coexist as a team. It's no problem that they have a title match with a lot of stakes at Bound for Glory. That's basically what this is saying. Okay.
Yep, they even did the whole solidarity thing with Trinity wearing a cowboy hat.
That's right. So clearly, no problems. And that's fine. All right. Now we get Moose and the other guy versus PC Rhino. And my note for this right off the bat, I'm just I look at Moose and I look at the other three guys and I look at what this match is about to be. And then as I'm seeing, like, I'm being proven right as the match is going on, I'm like, Moose is just getting dragged into the mud. He's getting dragged into the mud, absolute mud. When you see him in there with PCO and PCO struggling to stand at the best of times, and he just has to sit there and put this guy over or whatever, it's just like. And you got Myers over there. Yeah. Okay, and then you got Rhino, which is like, all right, Rhino's like a middle ground. He's like a middle ground between all of these. He's like a veteran, but he's kind of on the back end, but not as bad as PCO, but not as unsafe and offensive as Myers can be with a ladder in his hands or whatever the case may be. I don't know. It's just, there's nothing that's helping Moose out of this other than just him looking good by comparison.
Right, and how did Moose get tied up into this business with like Macklin and PCO? That doesn't make any sense. Like the four-way should have been Macklin, Bully, Rhino, PCO.
My guess, they just were like, oh shit, Moose doesn't have a match. Well, we got to put him in this thing. Like as you know, because we've been covering this for weeks, they got nothing for him. They've done nothing for him. They gave him that briefcase, and then they did nothing after that, including completely leaving him off at least one of the shows. And then they just realized they're about to have the biggest show, and Moose doesn't have a match, so they're just shoehorn him in at the last second.
They could have flipped him and Bully and had the storyline going where Moose wants 2 shots at the belt.
Could have. Didn't. That's actually a great catchphrase for TNA. TNA Wrestling. Could have, but didn't. That's basically the story of their own. You know, Todd Brantley, because Impact, right? Comment king. Now, I'm going to need a little bit more. You know, you can't just say because name of promotion here. We got to we got to switch it up, pal. But yeah, he's right. Anyway, just because. It's like, whatever, you know, just whatever. Here. We forgot. We fucked up. All right, well, just be in this match or whatever. Be in this garbage match. We'll talk about that. Yes, we are going to talk about that. Retro Rocky Review. We are going to cover Bound for Glory. If anybody's here and they're not sure, Bound for Glory coverage inbound.
Bizzle,
anyway.
fizzle, jizzle.
Yeah, it was jizzle, all right. Anyway, Macklin runs out and grabs Rhino during this match. And he attempts to beat up Rhino some more, and then Bully immediately runs out. Like, I don't even know if Macklin had let go of Rhino's leg when he was pulling him out of the ring before Bully started running down the ramp. Like, this is the most prompt response I've ever seen from anybody. He runs out and protects Rhino all of a sudden, and then while those guys are like, "What are you doing?" Then PCO like somersaults at Burt through the ropes and knocks him down. And then when he gets back in, Moose spears him and pins him. So at least Moose goes over in this match. He goes over on PCO, whatever. He pinned the unkillable, and that's the best you can hope for with a zombie, I guess. So, Jesus Christ, Jesus, I can't.
Moose deserves better, and I'm giving him better as I do my rewrites.
Thank you. Please. Lyrat says PCO needs to be unplugged and used as a place to put clean clothes on. I don't know. He's still got some of that Vegas dirt on him. I don't know if I'd hang any clean clothes on him. But yeah. So just incredible fantasy says, didn't know people still watch Impact. I haven't watched Impact since 2008. Well, don't worry. You're not going to be watching it anymore because it's TNA Wrestling again, pal. Ha ha. Fooled you. But welcome to the show. Yeah, it's never going to be awesome again, I don't think. It might be okay sometimes. We get an MK Ultra.
TNA turned a profit from 07 to 09. I mean, they were doing something right at that time.
They will never do it again. It can't be done. Yeah. The world is different now. Yeah, so anyway, MK Ultra vignette. Okay, so here's an example where I don't mind the stylizing of the vignettes, right? Like I think this is fine for the way they do it. Sort of cinematic. Masha speaking in Russian. She's never really spoken English on the show, even though she could speak perfect English. But her character, she speaks Russian, and Killer Kelly speaks English, so I assume that she's saying something similar in English to whatever Masha's saying in Russian, but even if she's not, it doesn't matter. It adds mystique, it adds flavor, it's a little bit interesting. If they were unique in this, then it would be fine. Unfortunately, there's like 2 or 3 other people that do this kind of shit, including the design and probably somebody else I'm not thinking. Crazy Steve now, basically. And even people that aren't like those 2 people I named have a sort of gimmick, but even people that don't sometimes do stuff like this. Macklin will sit in a room with some lights and music and shit and do this kind of stuff. It's like, you don't need to do that. But, you know, for MK Ultra, I think it's fine.
And I liked the usage of lights in this because it kind of helped make it look like that this was shot somewhere other than the venue that they're at. And the way the lights are positioned, the brightness, it made it look like this was done somewhere else, like off-site, and just kind of helped add, and it adds to it,
right?
Rather than
also,
distracts.
Yes, and also if you're looking at it in terms of, okay, if this was real and somebody has to sell themselves or advertise themselves on a show or whatever, and you were making a video and sending it into the company to use, you could actually believe that they did this. Whereas there's other people that have been interrupted in their own private vignettes and they still, like, I'd be like, if I was shooting a vignette and some other wrestler jumped me while I was shooting it, I'd be like, okay, I'm not sending this tape in. I got beat up on it. Would I want everybody to show me getting beat up on national TV? Well, not national, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. And if you needed to show that, there's plenty of creative and storyline ways to get that content on the program.
All right. Well, how about this content on the program? A package hyping us up for Speedball versus Osprey. What do you think about that? Are you hyped up from this package?
Not really, nah.
That's probably just because we're jaded. I'm sure everybody's a super fan, and I bet Retro Rocket Review basically had to, take something to calm his what is that, like, if erection lasts longer than 4 hours, seek medical. I don't know if there's something they specifically give you for that, but
seek medical attention. But fuck that, I'm seeking a prostitute.
That's right. All right, so Rhino just wants to let us know that he doesn't trust Bully or need his help, and Bully's just like, you're welcome. All right, so just in case we're not clear. Then, okay, now, here's the opposite of a how I feel about the MK Ultra thing. Okay, so Scott D'Amore is going to moderate a sit down between Josh Alexander and Alex Shelley. They're in the building, mind you, together, but they just thought it would be a good idea to keep the tempers from flaring. If I think Josh Alexander's gotten his emotions in check at this point, but just in case, we'll separate them, right? And this, like I just the what I wrote down here on my little notes is fake as shit. Like everything about this was fake as shit. This scripted, shitty, trying to manufacture some sort of animosity, and it's just, again, this is whoever dropped out of film school to join this crew has scripted this thing, and they're probably really feeling themselves with this dialogue, but it's really bad, and these guys aren't the guys to do it. That's how I felt about it. What about you?
Pretty much the same way. It was. It felt like somebody tried to like film a Zoom meeting.
That's it. I mean, that's all it is. It's not like we haven't seen this before either. We've seen them do the whole, we got to keep these guys separated. There's not really enough heat between these guys. These guys are trying to make something that isn't there, which is funny because if this is wrestling, you're the one that's in charge of whether there's something there or not. So if you can't even come up with anything, then how can you have nothing when you're the one that's supposed to provide everything? Like, it's your fault that there's nothing between these guys. You had however many weeks to make something between these guys, and you couldn't do it. So I don't know, man. I don't know. This is bad. But anyway, as bad as that, they have a thing where they basically, Josh has to be honest and say that he feels like the pressures of Alex Shelley feeling like he's a transitional champion, that he doesn't deserve to be champion, has gotten to the point where now Alex Shelley believes that, and he's insecure about it. And that's enough to get Alex Shelley to storm out of the interview, and they go to break. But when they come back from break, he attacks Josh in his room, and then Scott D'Amore has to come in from wherever he was at to break this whole thing up. And yeah, again, fake. And you should be fired, because we know that it's CM Punk. Apparently, this could make this an attractive landing spot for him if everybody can just jump each other in the middle of interviews that they started out being separated because they thought this exact thing would happen, and then you do it anyway. That's the perfect spot for Punk to go to. He doesn't have to worry about reprisal or anything like that.
I feared for my life just watching it.
Yeah, I did too. Knowing even this was taped a month ago, I was still worried that somehow I was going to be. So yeah, there you go. There you go. So yeah, that's it. That's your heat going in. A scuffle in the locker room because Josh Alexander was politely suggesting that perhaps the pressures of being champion are causing things to happen in Alex Shelley's mind. And as if to prove him right, the fact that he's that unstable that a comment like that would set him off. Great. Brilliant. It's brilliant stuff. Any other comments on this?
Nah, I think you pretty much covered it. This was so fake and contrived. Like, they didn't do anything to make this look like organic and spontaneous.
Sure didn't. So there you go. Well, anyway, our main event is Giselle Shaw and Savannah Evans versus Mickie James and Trinity. It's a match. Once again, Savannah Evans takes the fall, and then we go off the air with both ladies sort of holding the belt. Like they've got it in between them like a little tug of war thing. Not a vicious tug of war, a friendly. Like, oh, I got it and you got it. We both got it, but we're friends.
You could have had more interest going off the air with one of them clocking the other one.
Well, I mean, you could, but wouldn't that be just as cliche as anything else?
Yeah, but it's better than the whole tug of war with the belt thing where it's like, oh, I got it. No, like you just said.
Well, there are lots of things that could be better. And they're not doing most of them. So at this point, I guess I will take the road less traveled, even if it's still not very exciting. I don't know. It's kind of the opposite of what I was just saying. Like you have Alexander and you have Shelley, and there's really no reason for any heat between the guys because Josh has been completely babyfaced this entire time. He's never been anything but deferential and respectful towards Alex Shelley, and Alex Shelley gets more and more irritated with that. Now, if there were any layers to Josh Alexander's character, you could say like, kind of like with the bully thing, you could say like, I don't trust you that you're acting all, like nice and respectful now. But Josh has never been anything different in his character. So it's like, I mean, I guess the North were sort of looked at as heels, but I don't recall. Maybe anybody can correct me on that. But the point is, he hasn't done anything in this run, and Alex Shelley's still mad. So that's unrealistic. Now, conversely, with Trinity and Mickey James, they keep saying that, they respect each other, they love each other, they're sisters, they never got a chance to have a match. They're going to have a first time ever meeting, and they're just going to tear the house down, and they can remain friends even though they're going to be opponents. And sure enough, they don't get into a fight. So that's, of the two situations, that's the more likely outcome, right? It may not make for exciting match, but it at least is more in the realm of realism. Like, you don't just punch your friends. I don't know. So regardless, that's where we're at going in. We're a little intrigued for Bound for Glory. They're both holding a belt.
I mean, I admit there is part of my mentality goes to something that I was taught a long time ago, where somebody told me that the belt makes good people do bad things and bad people do unspeakable things.
Who told you that?
Guy who was a manager of the company I was in.
Oh, did he have a belt?
No.
Well, I guess he wouldn't know then, would he? But I get the point. Well, we're here. It's Bound for Glory. It's the biggest show of the year. Brandon is getting ready by doing a lucha dance. Samurai del Sol is not on the card, unfortunately. He was not invited to even be part of the 20-man gauntlet battle royal, even though he is the greatest luchador of all time. They could not make room for him in this battle royal. Not even just get thrown out by, Jordan Grace or whatever. So we're going to start with the countdown show, which essentially just boils down to the Hall of Fame inductions. So Gail Kim inducts Tracy Brooks into the Hall of Fame, and they have nice little speeches there. And then you have Scott D'Amore inducting Mike Tenay and Don West into the Hall of Fame. And some nice speeches from, I don't know if it was a nice speech from Scott. I guess it was fine. Then Tenay came out, and he gave a nice speech, putting over Don West, acknowledging lots of people, telling a couple stories and some jokes. Just like Mike Tenay has always been his entire career. It was very informative and slightly robotic. So congratulations to Tracy and Iron Mike and Don posthumously. And then he pitches right to the announcers from his speech to go to Bound for Glory to start Bound for Glory. So we're starting Bound for Glory, and we get an opening package to start Bound for Glory. It's not a catch-up packet; it's just a regular package. And then we start out with Kenta versus Sabin for the X Division Championship. And I was like, oh God, am I going to have to actually pay attention now? Because Kenta's on the screen. So I did. And, it was okay. I really wanted him to kick the shit out of Sabin, but he didn't do it that much. It was mostly Sabin beating him up and then beating him up some more. And then the finish was he went over on him. So great showing. You're not beating Goldberg on the biggest show of the year, and he proved it. So there you go.
I don't know. Tell that to Kevin Nash.
Okay, well, you're okay.
But then again, Kevin Nash is booking.
Right. So there you go. Well, I guess what I mean is you're not transplanting Goldberg 98 into 2023 Bound for Glory and beating him. That's what you're not doing. So there you go. Yeah, I didn't enjoy this as much as I was hoping to, but at least people did get to see an international star here because Samurai Del Sol couldn't make it.
Where was Leo Rush on this show? Where's Leo Rush been? That's my milk carton of the week.
Okay, well, I don't know if Leo Rush's Impact run is finished, but it was he had to miss. He had a big match.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember he actually did have some like family or medical emergency that he had to take off for. He
was scheduled to have a big match at Destruction in New Japan, and he had to get pulled from the match due to an illness.
Yeah,
he must have come down with something, and he had to get replaced, and they made it like a 3-way match at the actual show. So that was unfortunate, but
he probably ended up missing these tapings for that as well.
Right. But I don't know, like I said, I don't know if his run is finished up anyway, so he might not be back. We'll just have to see.
That'd be a quick ass run if it is.
Well, some people are only doing runs when they're in between shows, I would think that they would have had him be on the because they're doing the Super Junior Tag League right now, so I would have thought he might have been a part of that. And the fact that he isn't either means that his run over there is done, or he's still sick and can't participate. So whatever happened, but don't hold your breath. All right, so they let everyone out of their cages for the Monsters Ball match, which is just happening. Like, I forget, did they promote this? I really don't know. Did they promote a 4-way Monsters Ball? Anyone?
Like maybe for on the last Impact, that's really about it. And they had that tag match with Moose and Myers against, what was it? Rhino and
PCO.
Yeah, but that was really it.
Okay. And then, yeah, that's, well, anyway, it's Bully in this match and not Myers. So that's the idea there, that you would have like a tag match just featuring the participants, but instead, they just made it a regular tag team match at the Go Home show, and now it's supposed to be a 4-way between Bully and Bert and Moose and Rhino. So what ends up happening is Rhino comes out for his entrance, and then Bert jumps him during the entrance. So no entrance for Bert. He's just starting off hot, and then Moose runs out and then joins this fight and they start beating up Rhino, and then then PCO comes out with his music and shit. So I just wrote down like more garbage, more moose in the mud here. Like this is a literal garbage match. It's got garbage cans in it. Um, PCO got Moose actually powerbombed PCO on this bed of cinder blocks that he just poured thumbtacks all over, and I don't think he powerbombed him square. So it looked like he powerbombed him like half on and half off the thing, which I mean, I guess that could have severed his spine. Um, I don't know if I should blame Moose for this because I could see PCO telling him to do it that way. But then again, I don't think he was supposed to because he mostly missed the tacks. I mean, he did have some tacks sticking out of the back of his head, but yeah.
The dude's in his 50s. You don't need to be doing this.
He disagrees, Brandon. He thinks he should be doing this because he's in his 50s. And he can't just offer a regular match anymore.
Man, I will never forget. I saw Dustin Rhodes, like his early mid 2010s work was some of the best stuff I ever saw him do in the ring. And he did little, but it's just the little things that he just nailed and made everything perfect.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're not that anymore. We're not there. We are at the look, all I can do is get hurt, and that's my gimmick, so I'm doing it. That has now become his entire gimmick. He can hardly walk, which it's a chicken or the egg thing. Is he only doing this because he can hardly walk, or can he hardly walk because he's doing this? It's probably both.
And it seems like they were like starting to transition out of that. I mean, they did the whole thing with Bully trying to get to the human Carl side of PCO.
Yeah, that seems to have been dropped altogether. So yeah, there you go. So it was bad. It looked bad. The power bomb on the concrete blocks was bad. And then there was a spot where they set up a barbed wire covered table on the outside, and then Burt Macklin started climbing up to the top rope to do something to somebody in the ring, and then Bully pushes him off the top turnbuckle onto the barbed wire table, and he slides off the side of it. So like he doesn't land flush on the table, he lands on the side of the table, so the table cracks. He probably gets snagged by the barbed wire, and then he hits the concrete. So about the worst it could possibly go. It might have been safer if he just took a bump on the concrete, because he probably would have tried to control that. But because he was trying to aim for the table and missed, it was very ugly. So that was bad. And then this finish here was okay, let me see if I can try to describe this. I wrote down some notes, but I didn't write down as much as what happened. So they do a spot where Moose is holding a chair and Rhino goes to gore him, and Moose is using the chair as a shield. So he takes the full impact of the spear and the gore, if you will, and then Rhino knocks himself out on the chair because he's going full force. So they're both down. It's a double down. But then they have to lie side by side next to each other, and Moose has to hold the chair on top of himself because PCO is climbing up to the top, and he's going to do a senton off the top to hit Moose and pin Moose holding the chair, but he hits both of them. Like he lands on both of them. They're both off center. They're PCO barely is able to finish the somersault, so he kind of looks like he's doing a shoulder roll. Like when you're practicing taking the arm drag bump and you're doing shoulder rolls, it looked like he did a shoulder roll off the top, landed on Moose with the chair, pinned Moose, and that was it. And it looked way shittier than I made it sound when I was describing it, because it looked so fake that they had to just sit there and get in position after they're supposedly a double knockout. And then they had to get in position slightly by shifting. And then they had to they had to sit there and wait for him to climb up. Then he took a shitty dive, and then they had to sell that, and then they had to lose to that. If you go back and watch this, or if you already watched it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it was terrible. The whole thing was terrible. Moose is in the mud. This is not a behavior or booking fitting of a future champion or a wrestling god. And I know I'm a Moose fan, but I mean, look at everybody else. Like, who the fuck of any of these people is going to do shit in this?
They could have easily swapped like Moose and Bully in their matches on Bound for Glory. That would have made so much more sense and would have fit better into the stories.
Yeah. Well, there you go. All right. So there you go. That was that. Then we get Mickey with Gia, no music underneath. She cuts a babyface promo. Then we get a package, and then it's ABC versus the Rascals. Okay, here's the thing I said earlier. If you picture ever seeing anything that these guys have done, they did it. They just did it to each other this time. It was a do everything for however many minutes, and then let me try to remember because I didn't write down the finish. I think the finish was they went for the spray paint again, and Wentz got spray painted, and then they hit the whatever the thing they do. He flips him into the cutter, and then they fold him, and then they pin him, and they reclaim the tag team championships. So here's the best part that the thing I needed the most was, or the thing that I noticed the most, not needed. I don't know why I said that. The thing I noticed the most out of all this, because they just did a bunch of shit. I bet Retro Rocket Review loved it because it was just guys doing shit for 10 minutes. But what I noticed was after they won the belts, it was 35 seconds that they got to celebrate on the air, before they just cut to the next thing, which was the Mike Bailey and Will Ospreay package again. So okay, this is where it gets funny, right? And I understand that. I feel like even though nobody's accused me of it, I just get the sense because of the way that these shows make me feel that it sounds like I don't even watch the shows and I'm just fast forwarding or whatever. I'm doing that because it's funny. It makes me sound like I don't care, which is comedic content. And it also dismisses the hard work that these guys are doing, which is also part of the content because HMG fans are bloodthirsty and they think that kind of stuff is cool. And that's why you pay your $5 a month to Channel Attitude, because people aren't doing stuff like this. So you're getting what you would normally get. But the truth is, I do watch this stuff and I can prove it. Okay? Here's how I'm going to prove it. So 35 seconds that they get to celebrate, right? Then you cut that celebration. So maybe the people in the live crowd got to celebrate with ABC a little bit longer while they're showing this package. But I bet they showed the package in the arena too. So maybe not. Yes, I also do an NXT review too. Yes. I'm talking about all my shows. All my shows in general I'm referring to, right? But allow me to show you that that's a work and this is the shoot. So they show this Bailey Ospreay package, and as soon as the Ospreay package ends, they put up the graphic for Rascals versus ABC again. In case you're listening on audio, Brandon is face palming. So they put up the tag graphic, okay? Then they have the Bailey versus Ospreay match, right? Which I guess anybody watching at home is confused, but Bailey versus Ospreay. So there you go. I'm interested to see Retro Rocket's review of this match, because it was everything that you said, Brandon, earlier about the match he had with Samurai Del Sol. These guys, they don't try to win until the end of the match, and then that is just so people can kick out of shit, right? Like that is your working, right? Like my good match is you do a move and I kick out of it. Like that's just what wrestling is now. So that's what these guys do. And if you like that sort of thing, then I bet that, like, I saw at least a couple of people saying that this was the match of the show, maybe the match of the weekend. Not that there was much competition. Again, interested in hearing from, the chat. Give your review of Ospreay versus Bailey. Hey, if you guys heard about the Tiger Driver 91, but you missed it when he dropped Kenny Omega on his head, don't worry, he did it to Mike Bailey. So it was a little bit safer on Mike Bailey, but the way they cut the camera at the moment of impact, because again, I did watch this, and right as he drops him down, they cut to a different angle. So it looks like he drops him on his head, but it kind of didn't. It was much higher on the shoulders and everything like that, but it was still dangerous. He spiked Kenny. I don't know if that was something Kenny told him to do, or that's just how it worked out. Because even if you watch the original Tiger Driver, like Misawa works it to a point. Some of these guys are really hefty, so it may be he accidentally drops them on their head, but he's still trying to just make it like a high angled sort of short power bomb. But anyway, if you're a Tiger Driver 91 fan, Will Ospreay did it to him. That wasn't enough to beat him, but nonetheless, he did it to him. And then he, got the Stormbreaker and pins Mike Bailey, which we knew he would. I don't know if his championship was on the line, but it doesn't matter because he won anyway. And he got 2 minutes of celebrating. He never did the thing where he goes over to Bailey and like shakes his hand, or there's no sportsmanship here. He just leaves him lying on the mat and just walks around and celebrates, and he goes up the ramp and poses and celebrates and all this other stuff. He gets 2 minutes of that. ABC got 35 seconds. So yes, I timed it. Yes, I noticed. So yeah. So there you go.
Dude winning a random match gets more of a fanfare than a title change. Make it make sense.
Yep. I mean, it just, what it does is it just makes your tag team championship look like shit. Like, hey, new champions, who cares? Guess who's coming up? Will Ospreay. And then you don't even get the right match graphic afterwards. So is he that big of a deal? I don't know. Basically it. All right, after that, Josh Alexander sits in the stairwell contemplatively, and Alex Shelley does Stevie Richards Fitness, so they're getting ready for their match. And then we get the gauntlet package again, the exact same one. Then we get the Call Your Shot Gauntlet Battle Royal, which kind of has Royal Rumble rules on it. And then here's the order of people. Because if you do a review show, you should watch the show. All right, so Jake Something is number one. We know that because he lost that match that determined the order. Second guy out was Fat Eddie. So these guys have 2 minutes to go at it, and then every 60 seconds after that, another person comes out. Third person's Kenny King, and then the fourth person is our first surprise, Juventud Guerrera. The Juice. Finally, the Juice. Let's come back to Impact.
I always like me some Hoovy.
He got the Samurai del Sol spot. So yeah, he came in. Mask on. He didn't I don't think he embarrassed himself. I think he looked pretty decent in there. He did some stuff in there. Number 5 is Johnny Swinger.
Yeah, Daddy.
Yeah, Daddy. And then Crazy Steve runs in. He gets in there and starts fighting people, and then Number 6 is Giselle Shaw, and then while she's making her entrance, she gets upstaged by security running down to get Crazy Steve out of the match, which she's not a part of. So as they're running by, she's making that face like my entrance, which I thought was pretty funny. And then Dreamer comes out and he saves Johnny Swinger from the fork, and then they fight off. Number 7, Jody Threat. Number 8, Kylan King. So we didn't get a showdown between the Kings because Kenny King was already eliminated by this point. So there was no Kylan King versus Kenny King showdown, which I know everybody was waiting for.
And this is the perfect match to actually get that out of the way.
Yeah, when were you ever going to do it again? This was the only way. This is the only way. Unless, well, no. Number 9, another surprise, Sonny Kiss. So Sonny Kiss makes his appearance here. And then 10 is Bully. And then 11 is Matt Cardona, another returning surprise. He immediately gets beaten up. 12 is Jordan Grace. 13th is Eric Young. 14th is Joe Hendry. So this whole middle is just a bunch of people you see on Impact every week. Nobody cares. Number 15, Myers. Number 16, Heath. 17, Kazarian. 18, Rich Swann. 19, Jonathan Gresham. And of course, 20 is Dango. So, no surprise there. He's immediately eliminated, like in the Santino Royal Rumble fashion or Bushwhacker fashion or anybody else that gets those fast, the Jerry Lawler fashion. He's immediately eliminated the second he gets in the ring. And then when it comes down to the last 2 people, it's a pin or submission finish, right? So once it's down to the last 2, it's Jordan Grace and it is Bully Ray. Ooh. So we get the stare down and everything, and then they do some shit. And then, look, I'm not, short version is she hits the Grace driver on Bully and beats him. And he sells it like she rolled him up. Like she picks him up, drops him down, pins him. Then he's like kicking his legs like he's being schoolboyed. And then he gets up and sits up immediately like, I can't believe I just lost, which is like, that's the worst possible. That is truly somebody that doesn't, he's like shitting on his own, on the booking, right? Like whoever he's like, he doesn't agree with this. So right, this like is his way of doing it.
Right. You're going under to a girl. Okay. I'll go under.
Yep. That's 100% of that. I'm not even saying that I would disagree necessarily, like you putting somebody in this position where you want to get over. But if that's the case, like if I knew that that's how the finish is going to go, why do I put him in that spot? Like if I want a woman to win this mixed battle royal, she's going to fucking win it. Like she's going to win it. If that's what it is. So to no sell your finish, it's like, well, why didn't you kick out then? This is like this fucking guy. It's a fucking asshole, and I'm no Jordan Grace fan either, but I'm just talking strictly on, this is how it's supposed to go. Yeah. You could have had 2 women at the end. Could have had Sonny Kiss at the end. You could have had whatever. You could have had Swinger. Like he didn't actually get eliminated. Like he was outside the whole time, but he wasn't eliminated. So he comes back in like, and you think he's going to win. And then Jordan beats him. Like, or how about this? If it's got to be Bully Ray for whatever reason, how about you actually do roll him up? Like if some guy's not going to sell my finisher, I'm just not going to hit him with it.
Yeah, period. Exactly. Don't shit on it. Just do a quick roll up, catch him out of nowhere, right? and it works in this match.
I mean, so I'm just saying, I'm just saying. So she calls her shot immediately. She gets on the mic and says she's coming for that Knockouts championship at Hard to Kill. Whoever wins. So there you go. Then we get a package, and then we get Mickie James versus Trinity. Um, you know, they put in a good, solid effort. It was fine. Um, the finish was interesting. Uh, it was like, so Mickie does this like a version of the Heat Seeker, that MJF does, which is sort of like I don't know how to describe it. Like they're stuck through the ropes, and then he kind of jumps up and pile drives them like through the ropes. I don't know how you fucking I don't know how to describe it, but if you know what it looks like, you know what I'm saying. But basically, it's like a springboard pile driver is essentially what this move is that she does, and she does it to Trinity, and Trinity falls in the ring, and it looks they do a thing. I assume she's fine, but they're selling it like she's really hurt or whatever, and Mickie is like walking around the ring and not pinning her or whatever, so then when she goes to get her, they go into the finish where she reverses something and puts the Starstruck on, and then
So
Mickie fights.
So kind of like their version of, oh shit, we got to improvise like with Owen Hart, Stone Cold in SummerSlam '97.
I mean, almost, but not really, because one, Trinity wasn't actually hurt. Two, here's what happened. They came up with this spot, and Mickie didn't want. Unlike Bully Ray, she was concerned that, Trinity would just kick out of her move like it was no big deal. So she didn't want to bury the move, but she also didn't know what else to do. So she just walked around and posed for a second instead of going for the win in this title match. So it was very awkward. And then they went into the next spot. And then that's where she went for the DDT, and then Trinity reversed it and then put the Starstruck on, and Mickie fought, and then Trinity did the thing where she like modifies it, and then Mickie has to tap out. So there you go. So other than the fact that they couldn't figure out how to do that, she was right there by the ropes. Just get a foot on the ropes.
Right. You could have just sold it as like she hits the finisher out of desperation, crawls to Mickie, gets the arm over the chest, 1, 2 foot on the ropes. There you go.
Right. Or Mickie hurts herself doing the move, and she has to crawl over to make the cover, and then you get the dramatic 1, 2. Oh, she recovered. It was too long. She waited too long. I don't know what happens. Maybe something happened. Maybe Trinity really was hurt for a second, or they were afraid she was hurt. I don't know. You just have to go back and watch the thing, Brandon, because I'm not, it's hard to explain it in words, but I think you'll see it because you're used to the timing of what happens in the ring and how it's supposed to go. But it just, I don't know what happened. It wasn't good, but Trinity won, and they're still friends. Like, as soon as Mickie tapped out, Trinity was hugging her because she's already in position. She's already basically hugging her just in a more uncomfortable way. And then she hugs her and kisses her, and they're friends, and it's good. And Mickie tried, but she wasn't able to do it. And Trinity's still a champion, and yada, yada. It's good. Fine. It's fine. Everything was fine. And one thing I can't complain about is this stuff surrounding the Knockouts Championship. It's not really been that amazing or exciting, but they haven't embarrassed themselves. It's been a nice, solid, like, here we go. We're even. We're consistent. Nobody's doing any cinematic matches or, acting out of character, or it's the best thing they're doing, I guess. So, Liz did not like Mickey's gear. It looked weird. Yeah, it was different than she normally wears. The color was nice. It was like a blue and some sparkly. So the design was okay. I don't know if it was the best for Mickie, but I don't know. All right. So then Gia brings in Moose, and he says that it didn't go his way tonight, but he's already calling his shot for Hard to Kill. So he's gonna cash that briefcase in at Hard to Kill. Okay. Very like Moose to just put his hand, just reveal his hand right away, right? So,
No,
now he didn't say when at Hard to Kill he's gonna do it, but you know, we'll see. Then we get another package, and then we get Josh versus Alexander. And at this point in the show, I'm like, all right, what do you guys have left to do? Everybody else did every fucking thing. We already seen everything that you could ever do in the tag team championship match, which got 35 seconds of celebration time. We've seen a man get power bombed on concrete thumbtacks. You know, we just saw a women's straight up wrestling match. You know, what are you guys gonna do? And what do you think they did, Brandon? What do you think they did to set their match apart?
Just had a straight up wrestling match.
You're sure you're right? They did, man. Boy, they just went out by golly, and they just had a wrestling match that was, again, just guys doing whatever moves to each other that they could think of to do. And it was a match, boy. It sure was a match. There was matches and the stuff in the match, and they did it. And then, wouldn't you know, surprise, surprise, Alex Shelley won. Alex Shelley retains against the Walking Weapon. And even more surprising, they're friends again. Josh Alexander took a knee and offered his hand in defeat. And Alex Shelley pulled him in for a hug.
I mean, to be fair, though, that does kind of make sense in the thing that they didn't really play it up enough, but you could have done the story where Shelley was trying to get like Alexander's acceptance and respect as champion, and he kind of earned it with that match and by beating him. But they didn't play that up enough.
Yeah, well, the story certainly wasn't,
especially with
it wasn't that he needed Josh's respect. Josh kept trying to respect him, and he wouldn't take it. So I don't know why he changed his mind now. Like, he should have been insulted that Josh Alexander he should have been mad that he wasn't mad for losing. Should have slapped him for being a bitch. I don't know. Like, none of this shit makes sense, but I guess we already you previously had the Friends storyline on the match right before yours, so I guess we had to switch it up and have a little animosity. Anyway, it sucks. The match was fine. If you like these guys, the match was good, but I'm just saying the booking around the whole attitude of everybody here, it's like everybody goes home happy, I guess. Everyone's friends, and okay, so we do that. And then after that, then we get a short film from, our film school dropout, our unnamed film school dropout. And this is where you see a bunch of people walking in the woods, like several people, like Josh Alexander or, Eric Young or Jordan Grace or Eddie Edwards and Alicia and, others. There's more people. And then they show Frankie Kazarian emerging from some lake in this woods, holding a box.
Right. A certain lake where you can, I don't know. Do we know any lakes where you can kind of like be reborn or reincarnate? Maybe, I don't know.
It's maybe I've maybe heard legend of some place in the Carolinas that may or may not have these special properties of reincarnation, as you say. But in any case, Kazarian emerging, like he emerges like a monster, like holding this box, this weird box, and then he puts it down, and everybody gathers around it, and there's like music, and everybody's saying these weird things. And then they're talking about like bringing back something that's been gone and it's time and all this shit. And then they open up the box and a bunch of TNA falls out, and it's like spraying into the air with rainbow colors. And And it's a box of TNA, guys. It's a box of TNA. They opened up a box full of bright rainbow TNA. Just it got everywhere. Like, if you guys didn't watch this, then you're a normal, sane person. But if you feel like being sane and normal is boring, you might want to look this up, because I've been using a phrase, for a long time to describe the way I feel, and the phrase is I'm embarrassed. Anytime something like this happens, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to have ever been connected to any part of this as a participant. So, here you go. Box of TNA. And then they cut back to the arena where everybody that was in that thing, some of which are not necessarily getting along in terms of kayfabe, they're all in the ring, and Scott D'Amore's just like, we're back, and then throws a mic down like, yeah, TNA. So then they put up a graphic that Hard to Kill is actually going to be TNA Hard to Kill. And then the people are chanting TNA in the arena. And if you look at them, there were several shots that looked like somebody was not chanting it, and as soon as they realized the camera was right on them, they chanted it so that they didn't feel like assholes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they got caught. It's like when it's like if somebody's not singing Judas and then the camera shows up on them and then they have to mouth the words like they know it, like it was that. It was like, oh, TNA, like, yeah, this is what we're doing now. Not what I wanted or what I was expecting, but TNA. I would have loved to have been at the show and then just completely, deadpan look right in the camera, mean mugged it. Like, I'm not saying this shit. But then that would mean I'd be front row at a TNA event, and that ain't happening either. So if TNA were running a show on my front lawn, I would tell them to keep it down from inside the house rather than watch it. Well, that's not true, because I have to review it. So, but if I wasn't reviewing it, I would definitely call the police. So there it was, the biggest show of the year, a big return. We've discussed the return already, so no need to do that. The Bound for Glory show did not feel like, in any particular way, a big show to me. Not even by TNA standards. It felt like any one of their non-app only pay-per-views. They had a couple surprises, but nothing like earth-shattering. I mean, Juventud Guerrera, not earth-shattering particularly. No offense to him. It was just a show with stuff, and it could have been any show with stuff. I'm just being honest. So I don't really have the goal of dragging them through the mud the way they drag Moose through the mud, but it's just what ends up happening, because they're just not even with their means are they getting the most out of what they have, I don't think. So I don't know who this product is for, but it's apparently for somebody. And it's maybe more for somebody than, say, NWA, who just got a TV deal that I don't know how that's going to go. But I don't even know if NWA on network TV can draw what a number that Impact or TNA draws on Access TV. I really don't. I'd be interested to see, but I'm not sure. So we'll see who's the number 3 company in all of pro wrestling in America. But that's our show for, Impact Go Home and Bound for Glory Go Home and Bound for Glory and other stuff. And we're bound for something, getting the hell off of here. Maybe bed, bound for bed.
Bound
I
for
don't know.
sleepy.
Bound for sleepy time. So tell the people where they can find you sleeping, Brandon.
You can find me chilling and sleeping on Twitter, or as they call it, kids call it nowadays, X at Transarchistia. I am also on Twitch at twitch.tv/Miss Tia the Transarchist, as well as Substack at HMG Brandon. Whoop whoop.
All right, you can find me at Opinion Haver on all the social media platforms, all the HMG shows, and you can find me. Let's see, okay, twitch.tv/Opinion Haver, always playing games and stuff like that, and having more conversations that some of which have to do with wrestling. So check that out. And then you got check out Wrestling with Rib Rogers. They had Mike Mondo on for a Q&A this last episode, which is normally Friday at noon Eastern in their concrete time. But yes, Mike Mondo, my trainer, my original trainer. Which we've also had him on the Next Level Wrestling Review, which you can see on, that's for free on YouTube on the HMG channel. So if you want to see us talk to Mike Mondo and him give his breakdowns of matches and stuff like that, and check out that episode on the HMG YouTube channel, and then check out his interview with Rip Rogers, the Q&A on the Wrestling with Rip Rogers channel. Please subscribe. And then you've got Stevie Richards just doing way too much. Speaking of Goldberg, his most recent video is what went wrong with the match with Goldberg and Taker in Saudi Arabia. And the answer is everything. But I guess if you watch his video, you'll get to see his expertise as he breaks that down and shows you in detail what went wrong. In addition to that, of course, he's got his fitness channel. He's got his podcast, The Big Fitness Show, and it's got its own YouTube channel, and he's got his Patreon. So check out everything Stevie Richards is doing. And that's going to be it. So for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign-off line.